For whatever reason, I have been given the privilege early in life of diversity. Exposure to the Head Start program, exposure to different nationalities at Maxwell Air Force Base, with my dad working there in civil service in the laundry for 34 years, exposure to different socioeconomic communities, visiting my aunts and uncles, growing up in New Jersey, Ohio, Indiana, and Texas, family trips to Panama City Beach, Florida, only 2 hours away from my home. My parents didn't have a lot, but they were resourceful. My parents would sacrifice and save so that we could take road trips almost every summer to somewhere different. My mom would prepare fried chicken and sandwiches in a bag. We would stop at different rest areas or concrete benches beside the highways back then, and we would enjoy our family meals together. My dad always blessing us with prayer before partaking. It was magical. I still can feel the love and sacrifice of it all. And I lived in a university town that brought its own diversified flavor. My mother tells stories of all the efforts or offers my dad passed up because she wasn't crazy about the ideas. For her, being content and working hard was the way to security in life. He had offers to work overseas in Germany for the military as a civil service employee, but she didn't want to move away. He had taken off to New York once to work and found himself trapped in a workers' camp where everything he made in the day's wage he had to pay to the owner back for his lodging and meals. In these ways, I was a lot like my dad in my younger years. It sent cringes down my mother's spine each time I would tell her of what I was up to next. I'm sure because I was her baby girl, it kept her on pins and needles. Even though she said she didn't say it, I could feel the energy just the same. I had not tried hard enough to control all my missteps and my later downward spiral. This is what I hope my children would avoid. Ultimately, he sent word back to my paternal grandmother, and she sold a cow to send him the funds to come home. Once he and his cousins, the gospel quartet, the Heavenly Stars, were offered a record deal, but all the members did not agree, so they passed it up. They would sing songs like God's Goodness by the Willie Banks and the Messengers, This Evening Our Heavenly Father by the Dixie Hummingbirds, and Old Death by an unknown author. Or It's Been So Long or So Many Years I Don't Recall. Me growing up, listening to quartet singing was an amazing thing to witness. Almost everyone I knew in my family had at least 3 people who could sing, playing the piano or the guitar. The musical impact my upbringing had its effects on me. As old Deacon Jones used to say, and that is the thing about that. Not to mention, in those days, blacks were restricted or challenged to do things that brought in a decent income. Everyone made some type of adjustment. Whether it was heading off to a historically black college because white colleges would not allow us in, running moonshine as a necessity, or creating bookies or bootleg businesses, whatever needed to be done for the advancement within reason seemed to be fair game. For my children, I, as many parents, do hope that they would have access to more opportunities than I could have even imagined. We, as a family, saved and sacrificed to send my oldest, spree on a trip overseas, even though I did not yet have a passport. She was selected among some of her classmates while we were living in Tifton, Georgia, to take a trip to Wales, Ireland, and London. We ate turkey sandwiches for I can't even remember how long to scrape up the money enough for her to experience something I always wanted for myself. Each family member sacrificed something. Later, we would sacrifice again to send her to the Alabama School of Math and Science. This was her sophomore through senior year, where she graduated with a distinction in history and biology. Ultimately, she studied at Nicholls State in Thibodaux, Louisiana, and Troy University, majoring first in chemistry and biology for me, then philosophy and political science for some soul searching for herself. My youngest, Jordan, was given all the options as well, but he declined them, all probably as an act of kindness, seeing the drain it did on the family budget each month, struggling to find the resources and take the time to take her back and forth to Mobile, just on the off chance it would keep her interested in math and biology, which were her passions at the time. I would meticulously enroll her and Jordan into math and science and reading and arts and sports camps each summer, hoping they would find their passion at one of them and latch on for dear life. These were opportunities I was not afforded because we didn't have the funds. I desperately wanted to take jazz dance. I can still feel the faint movement of the motions in my body continuously, even though I never had the opportunity to take one class. I recall a time when in grade school, all the kids were checked for scoliosis. They told my parents I needed a back brace. When I came home, I gave the information to my mom, and she simply said, "We can't afford it." That was our reality. I was somewhat elated at the time not to have to wear a brace or be bullied more than I already was at school. Now, as an adult, I think to myself, "Buffy, you should have pushed harder." I know my parents made the sacrifices they could, and everything else falls into its proper order. We were still able to eat and have a roof over our heads, and I think I would much rather have that. My heart smiled, and I knew she had made the right decision. Later in life, my kids would have their own struggles. I am so proud of them, and my beautiful, full of life and energy granddaughter, Aubrey Jane, as I know my parents are of me, just for finding my voice and being who I was destined to be. I don't regret one sacrifice or extra job I took to provide what I felt best for both of them. We only get one shot at this life, and I'm going to give them my best.